Ashley Coggins says she loaned money to ex-boyfriend Daniel Piper so he could buy a 1990 Mustang. Ashley says Daniel has never paid her back.
Ms. Coggins, according to the complaint that I read, you and Mr. Piper lived together for a period of time.
Yes.
And you took out a loan.
Yes.
And the loan was to be primarily used for a car for you. What kind of a car did you buy?
1990 Mustang.
How much did you pay for it?
$3,200.
How much of a loan did you give him?
$4,500.
What'd you do with the rest?
Well, she got a portion of the money, approximately $300 to $400, and the rest of the money I used to plate the car and insure the car.
And then shortly after the loan, the two of you broke up.
Yes.
He made some payments on the loan and then stopped.
Yes.
You want him to pay the loan?
Yes.
Mr. Piper says that he was forced to sell the car, stop making the payments because you moved out of the apartment, leaving him with the lease and the bills. And he couldn't do everything, so he stopped making the car payments.
Well, I paid some payments. I did not.
How many payments did you make?
I believe 4.
And in what amount?
122 and some change.
Does that sound right?
I believe he made 4, but only $55 have been made since the payments were always late, and they were adding the interest and the payments were always late. He's only actually paid $55 on the loan.
Can I see the last statement, please?
Yes.
So I can look at it. Well, the balance is 4,445.20, but some of this is yours.
Right.
Well, let's say there's $4,000 left on the loan. Now, did you both sign a lease for this apartment?
Yes.
When did you sign the lease?
March of 2004.
And when did you move out?
I moved out July of 04.
Are you still in the apartment?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$735 a month.
And what was your financial arrangement with regard to the rent?
I was supposed to pay all of the bills, the electric and the cable and the cell phone bills, and him and his brother were supposed to pay the rent. They were supposed to split it.
Were there 3 of you living there?
Yes.
Is that right?
My brother did move in, but we were not splitting the rent. That wasn't the agreement.
Yes, it was.
Shh. Why not?
Due to the fact my brother had just got back from the Navy, he was in a tight spot, he needed a place to live. I let him move in with us under the agreement that he would pay $200 a month.
Is he paying $200 a month?
Yes.
Then you're almost whole, sir. If the rent is $735, let him pay half the rent. He's not in a bind anymore.
I understand, but he's
Right.
also not on the lease.
I don't care whether he's on the lease or not. He's living there.
Yes.
I mean, your defense to this whole action with regard to the car is that she left you with the lease, which I would take into consideration, except for the fact that you moved your brother into the apartment and he can pay half the rent. I mean, he's a big boy.
Yeah, but what was I supposed to do when she left the lease, didn't have somebody else move in?
Listen to me very carefully.
Okay.
When you moved into the apartment together,
Mm-hmm.
the two of you, in March of '04, did your brother move in with you?
Yes.
At the same time?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
With no agreement that he was to pay at least a third of the rent?
No. The agreement was $200.
Well, you better change the agreement, sir. Circumstances change. He's living there with you. Now, put your hand down. You sold the car.
Correct.
To?
Kid named John.
Did you put a sign in the window?
No, I didn't.
Well, how did you sell it?
The kid came to my mother's house where the car was parked in the backyard. He had them get a hold of me because he wanted to purchase the car.
You mean it was like a Karnak? He said, oh, this must be a car that's for sale?
Well, the person that I bought the car from was friends with this kid. He was looking for that kind of car, so he came to me.
How much did he pay for the car?
How much did he pay for it?
That's my question, sir. It doesn't give you an opportunity to think about an answer.
I just
you should
didn't
know
hear
that.
you.
You should know that like that.
Yes,
Don't play with me.
He paid $1,100 for the car.
Why didn't you give that $1,100 to her?
Why would I give it to her?
Well, who's supposed to pay this loan?
Me.
But you haven't been doing that.
At that time, I was still paying the payment.
But then you stopped.
Correct.
So why didn't you give her the $1,100?
Because I was paying the loan at the time. It was.
But
up
then
to
you
date.
stopped.
The $1,100 by that point was gone. I mean, the situation I was in, I didn't
Who is this?
have. This is my girlfriend.
What is she here for?
Because she's been the one dealing with Ashley during this whole thing.
Why is she dealing with Ashley?
Because I
Because he
repeatedly,
refused to talk to me.
I repeatedly asked her not to call me. If she needed to get a hold of me, I asked her to ask her mother to call me,
No,
to email me,
that's not true.
or
Oh,
to have.
I don't want to hear you unless I ask you a question.
I repeatedly asked
I'm
her
getting
not to call me.
frustrated with you, Mr. Piper.
Okay.
I'm getting frustrated with you, Mr. Piper. Somebody takes out a loan for you. You promise to pay them. You stop paying them. You sell the only equity that exists, which is your car.
Well, to tell you the truth, the car wasn't part of the loan.
Well, what was the loan for?
I'm saying there was no, that wasn't collateral on the loan or anything like that. Okay, this loan was just a personal loan. It wasn't a car loan.
I understand what it was, sir.
Okay.
She took out the loan to enable you to spend $3,200 plus tags and fees to buy a car.
Correct.
Of course I'm correct. You think you're smarter than I am?
No, ma'am.
On your smartest day. You're not as smart as I am on my worst day.
Okay.
What do you want?
I was wondering if I could say something.
Of course. I haven't had lunch.
Well, Danny was with Ashley throughout their whole high school career.
I don't give a, listen to me.
I
listen to me
understand that.
carefully. I don't give a rat's behind whether they were soulmates in utero.
Okay.
He took money from her.
I understand
listen,
that.
Try to be quiet and watch my mouth. He took money from her to buy a car. He stopped making payments on the car. He stopped making payments to her for the loan that she took out to enable him to buy a car. And then he has the gall to sell the car and not give her the proceeds.
She lived with Danny, was very unsatisfied with whatever Danny did. Left, did not pay any rent, didn't pay anything, asked him, oh, she is always in contact. Did you pay the rent? Did you pay this? Did you pay that? If you walked out, you are supposed to find someone to take your place. She did not do that. She left Danny with everything. Left him with the rent, the utilities. He had shut-off notices.
Listen to me.
A roof over your head is more important than a loan payment
When
that she
my mouth
should have never...
starts to move, yours is not moving. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Danny has a brother, a big, strong guy who served his country, who came back, and who now has a roof over his head, cable, gas, electric, rent. And these two boys have to manage to pay $735 rent. And they can get that by collecting cans if they need more money. His brother, if he is trying to find a job, can go and work in a fast food place for minimum wage. You can make $350 a month doing that. He has no right not to pay his debts. And if you are making excuses for him,
I'm not.
Good. Then you deserve each other. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000. That's all. Step out.
Nancy Savage is suing the mother of her grandson, Melissa Balding, for bail money. Nancy says Melissa and her son were arrested on drug charges.
All right, everybody listen very carefully because this is a long saga to get to a simple question. Miss Savage, I assume this is your son.
Yes, it is.
This is his girlfriend.
Yes, it is.
Ex-girlfriend.
True.
They have a child together.
True.
She doesn't have custody of the child. He doesn't have custody of the child. One of your other children has custody of the child because both of these two people were, in somebody's opinion, not capable of taking care of this child. According to your complaint, some time ago, your son was driving your car with her in the car. When did that happen?
About a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Let's have a month.
April 30th, 2004.
He's not your only child, is he?
No.
Perfect. It's a perfect example of don't put all your eggs in one basket. When they got pulled over, there were drugs in the car. I assume, Miss Savage, that they didn't belong to you.
Right.
So the two of them got hauled into court and your car was impounded. According to you, you bailed out your son and Miss Balding, and you want your bail money, which was how much?
$750.
You were to pay for the towing fees on the car and the impound fees.
The impound fees.
That she's not going to pay for because the Hulk over here was the one driving your car, right?
Yes.
And you gave him permission to drive your car, I assume. So I would suggest you get the impound and towing fees back from him. By the way, have you paid your mother back for your bail?
Yes, I have. Except for $50 of it.
What about the towing fees?
No, I haven't.
Where were the drugs found?
They were found behind the glove box, stashed.
Whose drugs were they?
They were his drugs.
Had you used drugs that day?
No.
Were you under the influence of drugs that
No.
day? Were you under the influence of alcohol that day?
That was possible.
What?
Yes, ma'am.
What time of the day was this?
Around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, because I was laying out at my pool.
What time had you started drinking?
Around 12 o'clock.
He's shaking his head no, I tend to believe him. Were any charges ultimately brought against you?
Yes, ma'am.
For what?
That I'm not quite sure about them, but I have this paper right here stating that it was all dropped and dismissed.
Let me see that, please.
I have on the bail slip that I got her what her charges were.
Can I see that, please?
And she has one more charge than my son was, which I believe is being under the influence. She admitted to the police that she had taken somas.
What is that?
It's a muscle relaxer. Not that day, but previous.
Now tell me about the call you received, Miss Savage, from the defendant about the bail.
First of all, one of their friends notified me that their car had been pulled over, so I went to where it was because it was less than a mile from my house. And I asked the officer if I could get my car, and he said no, there were drugs involved, and one of them was under the influence, and so they were going to impound it. So I asked him where my grandchild was, and the officer went over and asked Melissa, and she told him it was at her apartment. So I told him I would take responsibility and go get Brian and have him stay with me.
Who was watching him?
Some of their friends.
Go ahead.
So I went and brought my grandson home, and I was trying to calm him and everything. He was very upset.
How old is he?
2.5.
Go ahead.
I told him that Mommy and Daddy were having car problems, and when their car was fixed, that they would come and get him, and he told me that I should take him to where they were. So Melissa started calling. The first call, she was like, you have to get me out of here. I can't stay in here. You need to get me out. I'll do anything. Whatever it is, I'll pay you back. Just get me out. And that was the first of one of many calls. I probably got between 15 and 20 calls that night, and every time she called, she woke my grandson up. And
What about your son?
he called me once.
Did you go and bail him out?
I bailed both of them out.
No. He called you once.
Once.
When did you bail him out?
Steve got released around 2 o'clock that afternoon, and Melissa got released 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning because there was a woman in jail that Melissa had identified for another crime.
Oh, just a second. This incident happened at 12 noon.
No, the incident happened at like 10 o'clock that night that they were pulled over.
Yes.
Oh, so she had been drinking from 12 noon until 10 o'clock at night, according
Yeah.
to her. Oh, I didn't understand that. Now I understand. Okay, and during that whole time, she called you numerous times.
She called me about 15 to 20 times, and she told me that they wanted to test her for drugs and she wasn't going to give them a urine sample, and that when she had to go to the bathroom that she would have the girls in the waiting cell stand around her so they didn't know that she was urinating.
Step up. What happened to your case?
My case was dropped before hers was.
What kind of drugs were found in the car?
Marijuana, pills, and methamphetamines.
Whose were they?
Hers.
That's interesting. Not yours.
The marijuana was mine. I admitted to the cop when we were stopped. He asked if there were any drugs in the vehicle, and the marijuana was in my pocket. And I handed that to him, and he found the other drugs when he asked for my license and registration. When she opened the glove box door, he saw a container that everything else was in.
Who are you?
Her mother.
Step up. Why do you think your daughter didn't call you to bail her out?
Because I taught her not to call me and bail any of my children out until they have gone to their first preliminary hearing.
She was in Ohio.
Just a second.
They'll possibly lower the
Just a
bail or
second.
drop the
What's your last
cases.
name?
Daly.
Miss Daly, how many children do you have that have been arrested?
Oh, this one.
So when you said you've taught all your children not to call you until after they have had their first bail hearing, you were really referring just to her?
No, I raised 4 daughters as a single parent.
Yes.
And I worked in law enforcement for 30 years.
Yes.
And I just informed them that if they got into a situation where they ended up in jail, I would hope this wouldn't happen, but I just wanted to make sure that they knew what to do.
How many years have you spent in law enforcement?
All told, 20.
Between us, we have more than a half a century in law enforcement, Miss Daly. How many children do you have?
4.
Between us, we have 9 children. Did you ever have a conversation and tell your children, if you ever get arrested, make sure you wait until your first bail hearing because your bail will probably be lowered? Do you remember having that conversation when you told them about, you know, don't talk to strangers, don't go near people's vans? You ever remember having that conversation with your 4 children?
Negative.
Me neither. So you want to go through this one more time with me? Because unless you're kooky, because I never heard of a mother, even in law enforcement, sitting her children down and saying, listen, never talk to strangers, be home at midnight, don't give any strangers your phone number, and if you ever get arrested, I want you to wait until your first bail hearing before you call me because your bail may be reduced. Were you happy to get out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Pay her the money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $750, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Marcus Watson claims former friend Ryan Brooks vandalized his car after a fight at a party. Ryan is countersuing, claiming Marcus assaulted him.
Mr. Watson, the defendant was your best friend for a long time, according to your complaint and according to his answer. Came a time when there was an argument between the defendant and your sister?
Yes.
Was it some sort of a party?
Yes, it was.
His sister was giving him a hard time because, according to him, he had invited a friend without asking permission. So they were going at it, and you got involved.
Right, yes.
And it got a little physical.
Yes.
And if I'm piecing this together, you put your hands on him.
Well, actually, I pushed him to move him back.
You pushed him. You put your hands on him.
Okay, yes.
And whatever happened next, it is your claim that when he left the house, which he did, he scratched your car.
Yes.
This part of it is easy because Mr. Brooks says he was so angry that you put your hands on him that he did vandalize your car, right?
Yes.
But Mr. Brooks has a counterclaim is that you came looking for him and assaulted him.
That's not true.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because I've read your complaint and I've read his answer.
Okay.
So let's start with what the fight was about, Mr. Brooks.
The fight was about that the person I brought was his best friend. They were into it at a long time ago.
They were what?
They were fighting, they were arguing a long time ago with his best friend, but...
Whatever. That's what the fight was about? That you brought somebody that they didn't want?
Yes.
And who had that conversation with you?
The plaintiff's sister.
Is that you?
Yes.
Stand up. What's your last name?
Love.
What was the date of this party?
February 3rd.
Wasn't it your house?
No.
So tell me about the conversation you had with Mr. Brooks.
The conversation I had with Mr. Brooks was he invited people to the house that was actually enemies of whose house I was at. And I stood calm that whole night because I'm there to enjoy my birthday. And in fact, my daughter was also there. So I didn't need any conflict or anything. So I waited. And what actually came about to have the argument between me and him that became physical was an incident happened where one of our friends had misplaced their keys, and he's making statements and gestures to other people that were there that someone was looking attractive or whatever, and actually whose house we were at, they came into the room where I was at.
Please, this is getting much too complicated, Miss Love. You let things go for the whole night.
Right.
And everything was fine. And then at some point, you approached him.
Correct.
And that's after you had had something to drink.
No.
Are you telling me you were celebrating your birthday and you hadn't had anything to drink? Is that
yes,
what
I am.
You telling
my
me that?
My daughter was there, so I didn't have anything to drink. Why would I drink and my daughter was there? She's an infant.
Who else was there?
My brother.
And who else?
The rest of our friends.
Don't necessarily believe you. So you waited until the evening was dying down, and then something bothered you, so you went over to him, and what did you say to him?
I just asked him, why does it seem that you were trying to start a fight the whole night? Because he started fights with other people that were in the house, which the police were called to the residence earlier over something else that he started. So I just asked him, you know, why did you feel that you need to start a fight? This is my birthday. I'm here to enjoy my day.
And what did he say to you?
He had an attitude. He was drunk.
No, that's not what I asked you. I said, what did he say?
He really had nothing to respond to me.
So he didn't answer you?
No.
And what did you do?
Oh, well, I saw there was going to become an argument, so I just walked off.
How could it become an argument
because
if he's not responding?
It was a lot of gestures going on. It was
Show
hand
me
movements.
Show me the gestures.
Okay, I walked up to him and I said, why does it seem like you're trying to start a fight with everyone in this house? He was like, well,
so
at that point when you're doing that and you're rolling your eyes, I'm done with the conversation. I'm not going to argue with you.
So you walked away?
Yes, I did.
And then what happened?
I went back in the room where my daughter was to finish putting on her coat, because at this time we were getting ready to go.
You walked out of the room, and?
I went in the room where my daughter was.
And?
I went to put her clothes on. He came behind me.
And?
Doing all of this, like he wanted to start a fight. So I stepped out of the room, because I'm like, no, we're not going to argue.
Go ahead. So
or
he's
get
moving his finger like this.
Yes.
Right, and you moved out of the room.
And he's jumping in my face, so I come out the room, and I'm pretty much like, do you really want to start this? Do you really want to make this about a fight? And pretty much he went to swing at me, which he missed, and then he pulled out a knife, so that's when my brother came into the play. That's when he pushed him out the way.
No. Of course not. Of course not. It's not what happened. He went to swing at you?
Right.
Nah, not what happened. What happened?
She was right about the gestures and whatnot. I was drunk, but she came at me like she wanted to hit me. But instead of me hitting her, she kind of swung at me but missed me. And I was going to swing back, but the plaintiff and his two best friends, they jumped on me from the side. I'm all on the ground. I pulled out my knife for protection. They come at me again and start swinging at me, so I dropped my knife. And they told me to leave, and I left the apartment.
And nobody was hurt?
I was hurt.
She wasn't hurt?
No.
He wasn't hurt?
No.
And you went outside, and what did you do to their car?
I scratched his car.
Do you have an estimate for the scratching on your car?
Yep, they're right here.
Like, take a look at it. You scratched it with a knife?
Glass.
With glass. Okay, so now you're outside, you vandalized his car. Go.
All right, so after he vandalized my car.
And you saw him do that?
Yes, I looked out the window because since we were still friends, I looked out the window because he was waiting on the ride to pick him up. So, I'm putting on my clothes or whatever, I want to approach him. By this time I got my clothes on, ready to leave the house, he was gone. On my way home, to drive home, I had to circle around. I saw him. He was in front of, I'm not sure the name of the restaurant. I pulled over, and he was still drunk.
Who were you with?
My sister.
You were with your sister and the baby that she's trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I get out the car. So, I see he has a beer bottle in his hand.
Why don't you get back into the car?
Because I want to talk to him about my truck.
Why? If you know he's drunk, and if you just saw him commit a crime, why in the world would you stop your car with your sister and the baby in the car instead of just taking her home, calling the police, say, I just saw him vandalize my truck?
Because I didn't want to involve the police because he was my friend.
Then why didn't you let it go until the next day?
I could have,
when he was sober.
It was on my chest, and I wanted to
because
tell
you
him.
wanted to get it off your chest.
I wanted to talk to him.
Because you wanted to get it off your chest. You wanted to get it off your chest with somebody who you know is drunk, who had already left the arena. Mm-hmm. Nobody was in harm's way anymore.
Okay.
Except when you stopped the truck and got out. And you saw a beer bottle in his hand. So what did you have in your hand?
After I saw the beer bottle,
what did you have in your hand?
What do you call that? A lug wrench is what I had. But he didn't know I had it at all.
You had a lug wrench in your hand.
No, actually it was in my pocket. Let's make it correct.
Now, you're driving along, you see him in a restaurant.
He was outside at that time.
Outside the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
You stop the truck. When do you see the bottle in his hand?
When I stopped the truck.
When did you get the lug wrench?
After I saw the bottle.
Where did you have to go to get it?
My trunk.
Back or front?
The back.
So you had to get out of your truck, go in the back, get the weapon, and then go out to talk to him, right?
Yes.
Now tell me what happened, Mr. Brooks.
Actually, I wasn't walking around. I was in the restaurant on the phone with my best friend that was switching phone calls between me and the plaintiff. He called me and let me know that the plaintiff was looking for me. I was sitting in the restaurant waiting for a ride to come and get me because I'm hurt. And the plaintiff comes inside the restaurant while I'm sitting down and hits me in the head. And it wasn't a lung wrench. I think it was a tire crowbar, tire gauge. And it wasn't small. It's big. I have a picture of it.
I'd like to see it.
It's a lug wrench.
Where did you get this picture from?
At the end of the incident, the police did not want to arrest nobody. They took the whole situation, so they gave that to my best friend.
Do you have a police report?
No.
Do you have a police report?
No.
Did you have any medical treatment?
I went home. My aunt, who was a certified nurse, cleaned me up. And
did you take any photographs of what you looked
No.
like? Why not?
Because I just wanted to go home. I was messed up, and I just wanted to go home, lay down.
So what did you do when you finally confronted him, Mr. Watson?
I came to confront him while he had this beer bottle in his hand. It was outside. We went inside the restaurant. I tried to talk to him. He was swinging the beer bottle at my head. He swung it maybe about 2 or 3 times. The last time he swung it, launched it, and it fell on the ground and shattered. At that point in time, that's when I ran up.
Ran up what?
I ran up on him.
And what'd you do?
I hit him.
Yeah, you hurt him. With a weapon that you secured to do just that.
I didn't want to hurt him. The thing was, I had that for my protection.
No, no, no. Your protection was your car that should have kept running and kept going until you dropped your sister and the baby off. So you take care of your own car, Mr. Watson.
For what?
For what? Because
do
I'm awarding him on his assault charge the exact same amount as he would have paid you to fix your car. That's why. He's got a counterclaim for assault. Do you understand?
I understand that, but he vandalized my vehicle.
That's absolutely right, and you assaulted him with a tire iron.
Wait a minute, because he vandalized my car before the fact of that happened.
Oh, absolutely right.
So if
he absolutely did, and you would have absolutely been successful in securing a new paint job on your car, without question, if you hadn't assaulted him because you were angry. She started all of it. She really started all of it. And if you think that I believe that she didn't have anything to drink that night, you're mistaken. She started it because everything was sort of cool. All she had to do was go home. She confronted him.
Okay.
With an attitude, because you and I both know this is your sister, and she does have attitude. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
So you take care of your own car, sir, because the exact same amount that I would have awarded you on your complaint, I'm awarding him on his counterclaim. Because you know you had no right to vandalize his car, correct?
Correct.
Goodbye. I leave you both where I found you.
Christine Clark says her former friend, Breon Hawkins, owes for a loan, damage to her home, and a false arrest.
Ms. Clark, the defendant was a friend of yours who you allowed to move into your home. And it is your claim that you made a loan to him to put it as a down payment on a car of $1,000. Things turned sour in the home and you wanted him to leave. You claimed that he damaged your property by breaking down the door and the door frame. And in addition, you claimed that he had you falsely arrested. Mr. Hawkins says that there was no loan. He says that you tried to lock him out of the apartment, which is why he damaged the door. And as far as the false arrest charge is concerned, he says that you and Mr. Hawkins, as well as your boyfriend, were arrested that day. When did he move in with you and why?
He moved in with me in September of 2008. At the time, he was living with his best friend's parents, and he basically told me that he needed to move out of the home and he had nowhere to go.
How did you know him?
I met him through a mutual friend of ours.
How long ago?
In June 2008.
Why would you let him move into your house?
We befriended each other. We started hanging out. He seemed like a really nice guy at the time, a really sincere, sweet guy. And out the kindness of my heart, I allowed him to stay at my home. He slept on my couch.
Odd.
Right.
Now tell me about this $1,000 that you gave him.
In April of 2009, he approached me and asked me if he can borrow $1,000 from me because he needed a car. At the moment, I didn't actually give him the money, but 2 weeks in, I actually ended up giving him money. I have paperwork here that I went to the bank and I withdrew $1,000 out of my account.
Just a second. Tell me why you gave him the money after 2 weeks.
He needed a car. He needed another car. The car that he had was breaking down. He didn't want to pay for it to get serviced, and he needed to get back and forth to work.
Where was he working?
He was working at St. John Hospital in Santa Monica.
Doing what?
A Lyft associate for the Lyft team. So it's not like it's not like I just
What were you
gave him-
doing?
I'm a Lyft team member. I lift and turn patients.
Still working there?
Yes.
So you needed a car to get back and forth to work?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I have the documents here and saying that I did.
He doesn't deny that you gave him
Okay.
$1,000. He just says there was no expectation of
We
being
had
repaid.
a agreement that he promised to pay me back $300 a month for the next 4 months, and the payments were going to start actually on May 17th, the actual day that he came to my home and damaged my home. That was the day that the first payment was supposed to be started. No such payment was received at that moment.
Okay, let's deal with the car.
Okay. Where do you want me to start?
You needed a car.
I needed a car, which is true. She did give me the $1,000, but it wasn't for me to pay her back. It was.
Your Honor, that's a lie.
If you interrupt again, and I do this, if you interrupt him again, I'm dismissing your case. Do you understand?
Yes.
I gave you an opportunity to speak. Now it's his turn. Got it?
Yes.
Tell me the circumstances, sir. Tell me what you said to her, what she said to you. That's what I want to hear.
First, I asked, can I borrow $1,000?
Okay, can I, just a second, can I borrow $1,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And she
said?
She was reluctant to give it to me because she was like, I don't think you're going to pay me back. And I said, okay, I'll pay you back. She was like, let's write a contract. She didn't write the contract out. So then 2 weeks passed, and then she offered, like, sex.
No, don't tell me offered like. I want you to tell me what she said, Mr. Hawkins.
Basically, I give you the $1,000 if we continue to have sex with each other.
Okay.
And I did it. I had sex with her before, so I don't see would it be a difference to not have sex and do it this time. I haven't been having sex with her since December. This is now April, and like she had tried to come on to me, and I like reject her.
Are you asking me?
No, I'm just saying. I reject her.
You rejected. You stayed on the couch.
Yes.
You owe her $1,000, Mr. Hawkins. Very good. All right. Quiet.
Excuse me?
That's what you said. Can I borrow $1,000? And she said, I'm reluctant. You said, I'll pay you back. And you said, I'm reluctant. And then 2 weeks later, she gave you the money. Now, let's hear what happened on May 17th.
Okay, on May 17th, I approached him for the first payment of the money. He basically got on my face and told me that he wasn't going to give me anything. He didn't owe me any type of money. I was on the phone at the time.
You want to lose? Fast?
I was on the phone at the time with another friend of mine, and a friend of mine heard the commotion going on.
Don't tell me what the friend heard.
I went to pick up the friend because at this point I was afraid for my life. I picked up the friend, and we came back to my apartment. I sat outside, and I called the police. I have phone records here that I showed that I called the police for. Because he was threatening me at that point, the reason why I left.
Just a second. You left.
I left.
He was threatening you. Tell me what he was saying to you.
That he runs this ish, and he was going to hit me, and if he can't, by law, he lives there now. I can't do anything to get him out. He's not going anywhere. He was going to hit me and vandalize my car.
No, I don't believe you said that.
Oh, he did.
No, I don't believe you said that. I believe that he said he's not moving anywhere because he lives there now. And then you left. You left and you came back with a friend.
Right, and I said...
What did you say when you came back with a friend?
Nothing. We sat outside the car, and I called the police at that point. I sat outside, and I called the police because I needed him out of my apartment at that point because he threatened to hit me. That's the reason I left.
Let me explain something to you. I don't believe that. I don't believe that he threatened to hit you. But you called the police, and you tried to get him out of the apartment. Just answer my question.
Right, yes.
Police came, and they must have told you that...
He fled the scene.
Just a second. Did the police tell you that he was a tenant in your apartment?
Yes.
And that you couldn't get him out?
Right.
So what did you do?
I went inside. Actually, before I went inside, he came with the young lady that he's brought to court now. After he fled the scene, he came back with the young lady in the car, and I told the police at that point.
Well, he fled. Did you flee the apartment?
I fled to get help.
Fled.
I was afraid for my life at that point,
Then
Judge.
you should have fled
I
and
was
gone
really
to the...
afraid.
It's Clark. Don't play. If you fled and were afraid for your life, you go to the police station. You don't go pick up a friend. That's what you do if you are afraid for your life. You don't come back with somebody who's not in authority.
Okay.
Okay? So let's not play with each other. There are things that I believe, and there are things that I don't believe.
Okay.
Right? Because it's based on common sense and my years on this earth. Now, he left, and then he came back with this young lady.
Yes.
And what happened?
At that point, when I was still talking to police, I told the police that he came back with the young lady. They did nothing about it.
Right, because they said he's allowed to be there, because he's a tenant.
They didn't say that.
Well,
they just,
but that's what I'm telling you, and that's what you knew from before. Go ahead.
So at 4 o'clock in the morning, she started playing on my phone. She called me.
Just a second. Was he still in the apartment?
No, he left altogether.
He left. They both then left.
They both left, correct.
Okay, and then what did you do?
I went inside, and at that point, I started watching TV. I finally fell asleep around 3:30 or 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, they started playing on my phone. I turned my phone off.
Just a second. Did you lock the door?
I locked the door.
Did you double bolt it from inside?
I locked the top locks.
So that means that he could not get in?
He can get in. He had a key.
No.
He has the key. He had the key to the apartment. He stayed there. He has the key.
Go ahead.
I only had a key to the bar door. I didn't have a key to the wooden door. So that's how she locked me out.
Okay, that's what I assumed.
Okay.
So you locked him out. Hey, Miss Clark, don't play with me. So you locked him out.
I locked the door.
You
Judge,
locked him
I was afraid for my
out.
life. He threatened me.
Listen, Miss Clark, just answer my questions, madam. You locked him out. The police had already told you that you had no right to lock him out, but you locked him out and he broke the door down. Is that what happened?
Yes, he came.
Is that what?
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Yes.
He can do that.
At 5 o'clock in the morning, he kicked in the door with this young lady here at 5 in the morning. Why is he kicking the door in at 5 in the morning?
Listen to me.
At that point, I was very afraid for my life, Judge.
Well, I don't care whether you were afraid
for my
Miss
life.
Clark, hey, I don't care whether you were afraid for your life. You locked the door. They tried to call you. You turned your phone off.
No,
and he
that's
broke
not the
the
reason
door
she was
down.
calling me.
Miss Clark, listen to me carefully. He has the right to do that. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. You got your $1,000, but you had no right to do what you did. The police already told you had no right to keep him out, so you took the law into your own hands and you locked him out. And he has the right to go into his place of abode, which is where he was living with you for a long time. And he broke down the door because you had no right to lock him out.
I understand that, Judge, but at the same time, it doesn't take him to come to my home at 5 in the morning. I have small children living with me. Why is he coming to my home at 5 in the morning, kicking in my door?
Listen to me.
I'm afraid for my life at that point.
Listen
and
to
he's
me.
coming with someone
You're trying
to
to
hit
talk
me?
over me. That's not going to happen. I tried to explain it to you. The police tried to explain it to you. You didn't like their answer, and you don't like mine.
Judge, I have pictures of the damages that he done to my apartment here.
That's your problem.
When he kicked in the door, he damaged my coffee room table. He broke the table.
Then you shouldn't have locked the door. The next day, you go to court and you tried to have him evicted for whatever reason.
I actually got a restraining order because I was falsely arrested.
That's what
I
you
was
have
falsely
to do.
arrested, and I have my witness here that can attest to that. When I called the police, they came back out and he claimed that I hit him and he put me in jail. So he falsely arrested me on battery charges, and that's a lie because I have paperwork here also saying that no charges were filed against me. So in the midst of me being nice and helping him out, I get suckered in the end. I lose all this money in the end because I tried to help this gentleman out here.
I want to tell you something. You have children who live with you?
Yes, I do.
You don't bring somebody into your house that you've known 3 months.
I know. I learned my lesson
Just a second.
now.
Well, now you learn your lesson better. Because if there wasn't some bizarre reason for bringing him into your house after 3 months to expose him to your 2 children, bizarre reason that I don't even want to get into right now. You don't do that if you're a responsible adult and a responsible parent.
Judge, I go to work every day.
Miss Clark, you made a mistake.
Yes, you're right. I made a mistake.
Acknowledge your mistake.
I did.
And you also, if you're a hard-working lady
did.
and have 2 children that you're supporting, you don't lend somebody who's a couch sleeper $1,000 of your hard-earned money.
I learned my lesson.
Well, now you're going to learn a better lesson. You get your money back, but the rest of it is your problem. You had no right to lock him out of the place where he had been living for half a year. You owe her the $1,000 for the car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all.
Bodies are excused. You may step out.
Billy Tyler says his daughter, Tiffany Cantrell, had him falsely arrested for stealing her car.
Mr. Tyler, the defendant is your daughter, and it is your claim that she had you falsely arrested for stealing her car. Your daughter says that you did exercise control over that car without her permission. She had every right to notify the police that you had, in fact, taken the car without permission. So let me start with you, Miss Cantrell. I understand that you are married.
Yes, ma'am.
Your husband is in the armed services.
Yes, ma'am.
Where is he currently located?
He's in Afghanistan.
And how long has he been there?
He's been deployed since October.
This car was originally purchased for him.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how it came about that your father got the car in his possession.
The car was on my grandmother's property, and he took it because he was angry that my mom had left him.
Where did you get the car from, Mr. Tyler?
Judge, I originally bought the car in Cleveland, Alabama at a car auction.
What do you mean you bought the car?
I was there to buy some cars, and my ex-wife had called her, and she came over to the auction. And she seen the car, and she said, I'd like to have this for Kevin, her husband.
Who paid for the car?
She did.
So that she
wrote a
bought the
check.
car.
She
You
wrote-
didn't pay for the car.
No, she
Well,
wrote
you
a
said
check.
I bought the car
Well,
at an auction.
I
You
meant,
didn't-
Judge, that I was there to buy the car, and she wanted it, so I let her have it. That's how.
You were at an auction to buy several cars. Your daughter
Yes.
came with you. She saw a car that she wanted. She wrote out the check for it. So she bought the car.
Right.
Don't play
Right.
with me, Mr. Tyler.
Okay, I'm not, Judge.
I guarantee you
Okay.
it's not going to happen. Okay, so your daughter bought a car, and according to her, she parked it at her grandmother's house.
No, Judge.
Where was it?
It was in my yard.
So it was in the yard of the house where you were living.
Uh-huh.
Who were you living there with?
My ex-wife.
Anybody else?
My cousin.
What's the address of this house?
70 57 Highway 75.
And is that where the car was taken from?
No, ma'am.
Where was it taken from?
71 Highway 75.
That's where your grandmother lives?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you live next door to your mother-in-law?
That's my mother, Judge.
Your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Was the car parked at her house at any time?
No, Judge.
Okay. How did it come about that you took control over this car?
When the car was bought, it was to be brought to my house to fix for Kevin. And at the time, Judge, they were going to pay for it to be fixed. And Kevin had gotten hurt and come home. And Kevin asked me when he was home if I would keep the car at my house until he came back and fix what it needed, and when I get home, I'll pay you for it.
Okay.
So we had a windshield put in it. When you walk out my back door, it was sitting right there with a car cover on it. Then, Judge, when my ex-wife left...
Okay, so you separated.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
It's a long story behind it.
Let's put it simply. Alton wanted the car.
To give to her mom, because I wouldn't let her mom
Just a
have
second.
one.
In whose name was the car titled?
Mine.
Yours?
And my husband's.
So she said, I want the car. I'm going to give it to Mama.
Yes.
So what did you do?
I had told her prior to this that me and Sammy was going to fix the car. He told me, he said, if you'll pay for the parts, I'll do the labor, and when Kevin comes home, we'll give it to him. And, Judge, that's what I had in mind doing.
I don't care what you had in mind, sir.
I
don't care what you had in mind. I got the gist of it. You and her mother separated, and she said, I want the car to give to Mama.
Right.
I assume that's because her mother didn't have a car.
Right. And
okay, and you said no.
And not unless you pay me.
Okay, so now you want to be paid before Kevin came back from Afghanistan.
Well, if she was going to take it. Okay.
You had made an arrangement with Kevin that he would pay you for the parts when he came back from Afghanistan.
Yes, ma'am.
That was your contract.
Yes, ma'am.
So now you're changing the contract because now you want to get paid right away.
Well, the car was to stay there, Judge, till he came home.
No, it can go anywhere that the owner says it can go.
But he told me to keep it there until
But then you spoke to him again and he said to give it to her.
No, he called on the phone,
I said you spoke to him again and he said to give it to my wife.
If she pays.
No.
Yeah.
He said give it to my wife.
If she pays the labor to Sammy, not the parts, but just the labor.
Labor to Sammy has nothing to do with you.
Right.
What did you do with the car?
Well, a couple of days there, the car winded up. You could tell where it had tried to be broken into. Not for sure who done it. We took it and put it in storage.
Not we. You.
Well, me and my cousin. He had done the labor on it, Judge, and I'd paid for the parts.
Did you tell her where it was?
Yes, I told her I'd put it in storage, and when she paid us, she could get it. There was a labor lien against it. And she wanted proof of it, Judge, so I sent her proof of it.
Let me see what you mailed her.
And read, may I speak, Judge?
No, now it's her turn.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When they sent this letter, they did send the letter, but it was not sent until after the investigator had called and spoke with him about my car.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. I have the report. And
Can I see the report,
yes,
please? That's interesting, because you send her this ridiculous note that says, I have in my possession a Pontiac Firebird, and there is a $10 storage fee on it. And then you change the amount of repair bill. It looks like you put first it was $1,300, then it was $700. I don't know. Can't figure this out. And you say if you don't respond within 90 days, the car will be sold at public auction. Now this, I don't know what date this is, but she signed for it on May 23rd, because she allegedly sent this by certified mail. But she filed this incident report on the 16th of May, which is before you sent this letter to her. So the police contacted you. Put your hand down. Police contacted you and said, where's the car?
Probably.
Or they contacted Sammy.
No, they come out and contacted me.
Oh, there you go. And then you sent her this letter.
Judge, the officer, the day he came out, he wanted a copy of that letter. The day the officer come out and talked.
It's absolutely impossible, sir, because you dated this letter May 17th. That was the next day after the officer took this complaint.
Judge, he didn't come out the day he took the complaint.
I don't care whether he came out and took the complaint on that day or not. It doesn't make any difference, sir.
Okay.
What I'm telling you is, I got the whole story. You know what the whole story is? You were mad at your ex-wife.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't want her to have a car. Don't shake your head no to me. You were angry, you didn't want her to have a car, and you had worked on this car, and when your daughter said, I'm going to give this car to Mama to use because you're not giving her a car, you said, over my dead body, because I've and I was going to give it to Kevin, but I won't give it to the woman who I've lived with for the last, I don't know, how many years? 30 years?
24, Judge.
24, and raised a bunch of children with how many children?
4.
4 children. I'm not going to give it to her because I don't like her. I like this stranger, now husband of my child, and I give him for nothing, but I'm not giving it to my ex-wife because who the hell does she think she is throwing me out?
You're right.
Well, that's too damn bad. You had no right. That's too bad, Mr. Tyler. Mr. Tyler.
She took it all and give it to a man one time. She ain't going to do it again.
Listen to me, Mr. Tyler. I don't know the reason after 24 years and raising 4 children with somebody that they say, I don't want to live with him anymore. I'm not going back over that. I don't know whether you were a good husband, whether you were not a good husband, whether you were a kind person to her, whether she was a kind person to you. I have no idea.
She's the one who left.
She may have had good reason. Let me tell you something about most women. And how old is your wife?
42.
Most women, if they have a loving mate, someone who cherishes them and cares for them,
Some of them appreciate it.
I'm speaking, and treat them well, they don't say, I'd rather go it alone. See, sometimes men do. Because, you know, men will turn around and they'll say, well, I can find somebody who's 20. What do I need? This 42-year-old who's raised my 4 children. Now, your wife must not be a bad person because her daughter says, I'm going to let you use this car if Daddy won't give you a car. So evidently, uncross your hands. Your wife may have taken your attitude for 24 years. I don't. What I'm telling you is you had no right to take that car and put it in a place where she couldn't find it. And you didn't do it because you put a mechanic's lien on it. You did it because you were PO'd at your wife. And that you had no right to do. You had no right to exercise dominion and control over a car that did not belong to you. Now, your daughter, as far as I'm concerned, should not have gone to the police, should have tried to settle this matter civilly. But then again, you took your mother's side in this altercation. Yeah, you felt badly for her.
Somewhat, yes, ma'am.
You felt badly for her. So, in a family situation, should she have gone to the police? Probably not. Did she have a legal right to go to the police because you exercised dominion and control over her car? Absolutely. Don't say no. She did. And what they found when they found you not guilty wasn't because you weren't guilty of exercising control over the car, sir. What they said was, this is really a family matter, and we're not going to find you guilty of a criminal act because what you were really doing was acting vindictive. And we're not going to get involved with that. So, sir, she had the legal right, put your hand down, she had a legal right to call the police to make a police report that she no longer had a car that was titled in her name and that you had.
Even though she had brought the car down there and told me to fix it.
Listen to me, sir. You can't trip over your own words. What you said to me 10 minutes ago was, it was your intention to fix the car. First, you said you were going to make a gift to Kevin when he came back from Afghanistan. Then you changed that and you said, well, I spoke to him and he said to me the parts when he came back from Afghanistan. She never told you she would pay you for anything unless you're going to change your story again.
Judge,
right. You have no case, Mr. Tyler. Grow up. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Salminio Moten is suing his ex-fiancée, Andrea Umersky, for the return of a laptop. Andrea claims Salminio gave her the computer before he was deployed to Iraq.
Mr. Moten, it is your claim that the defendant, who is your former girlfriend, has a computer that belongs to you. You want it back.
Yes, Your Honor.
The defendant says that you gave her the computer a long time ago. It was a gift. It was a second computer that you had. You had bought yourself a new one. She has a counterclaim for a whole bunch of nonsense. How old is this computer, Mr. Moten?
3 years old, Your Honor.
When did you buy yourself a new computer, Mr. Moten?
In 2008, Your Honor.
Why did you buy yourself a new computer?
Because I was getting deployed to Iraq, and the old computer, it was old and it was slower than my new computer. So I felt I needed more storage.
And you were taking the new computer to Iraq?
Yes, for business matters.
So you bought yourself a new one. And at that time, you were involved with the defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
She was your girlfriend?
She was my girlfriend at that point, Your Honor.
Tell me about when he gave you the computer.
When he came back home on leave, we were scheduled to be married, and he gave me the computer when he left back.
What did he say?
He didn't really say much. I mean, he just left it for me because he had a new computer. He didn't need it anymore.
What did he say to you?
There was no specific that, I mean, I recall that he said he just gave me the computer. We jointly lived together. I mean, I have a text message stating that I can have the computer after we broke up.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
If the screen goes blank, you can just press the OK button.
Byrd is the button presser.
That would be his number listed below, his cell phone number.
It's cool to keep the laptop, just give me my mail and my clothes. Did you send that to her?
I think so, Your Honor. Yes, I did.
So?
Well, at that point in time, I felt like at that point in time, I had no way of getting my laptop. I had to get...
Just a second. You went to Iraq, you came back, you broke up. The reasons for it are irrelevant to me. And when you came back, you asked her for the computer.
Yes, Your Honor.
And she said to you, you gave it to me.
No, she said, for me to give you my computer, you have to give me $400 for her ring.
And you said what?
I said, I don't owe you for the ring because I...
Fine. You said, I don't owe you for the ring. That's part of a counterclaim. I don't have to hear that just yet. But at some point, she had your mail and your clothes.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you said to her, it's okay, keep the laptop, which she's now had in her possession for over a year, correct?
Yes.
Keep the laptop, just give me my mail and my clothes. That's what you wrote. Did you get your mail?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you get your clothes?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Well, then she keeps the computer.
Well,
you
no,
made a bargain with her. You said, give me my mail, give me my clothes, you keep the laptop. You got your mail, you got your clothes, she keeps the laptop.
She was asking to keep the laptop because she needed internet access for her and her kids. I was being generous by letting her keep it, but...
Well, you were being generous by letting her keep it. That's what you said. Mr. Moten, were you out of the country serving your country at war?
Yes, Your Honor.
You saw lots of them?
Yes, I did.
You don't have to go back anymore, do you?
No, not at this point, Your Honor.
Great. And you're home safe and sound, right?
Yes.
And we're talking about a computer that was so old and slow that you got rid of it, that you bought yourself a new one.
Yes.
Right?
I did, Your Honor.
Just a second. Old, slow, you bought yourself a new one. You know how many old computers I have in my house? My husband says they're too slow. I said, where are you going? That it has to be faster. But you got yourself a faster one, right?
Yes, I did.
Right? And you came home safe and sound. What are you bothering with minutiae for? What are you bothering with nonsense for, Mr. Moten? Especially when you said to giving my mail and my clothes and keep the laptop.
Well, I had important files on my laptop that I really wanted.
And you did without them for almost 2 years now, right?
Yes.
You'll do without them for another 20.
I asked her to put it on a hard drive.
And did she?
No, she wanted to keep the whole laptop.
Just a second. Did he ask you to store some stuff for him?
No.
No, of course not. He's making it up as he's going along. Forget it, Mr. Moten. You got home safe and sound. You gave her the computer probably before you left because you got yourself a new one. That's what boyfriends do for their girlfriends. They say, here, let the kids use this one. Let the kids play games on this one because I got one that's faster, that's got more memory, that's got this. And then when you broke up, now you want your computer back.
Well,
and she's not going to give it to you. She's not going to give it to you because you gave it to her. Not once, probably, but twice. Now let's get to your nonsense counterclaim.
Okay. Your Honor, when he asked me to marry him, he agreed that I would go purchase the rings on my credit card, and when he came back 2 months later, he would pay the full bill. We later did break up, and we agreed that because he had one ring and I had the other ring, that he would pay half, and I also have an email saying that I will pay half. I don't have a problem with that, and here's the bill. But it's from a month ago, so there's still late payment charges on there. I haven't paid it. I have 3 children. I have more important bills to pay than a credit card bill.
Did you tell her to go buy 2 rings?
No, Your Honor. She bought the rings on her own.
It says, I will pay my half. I don't have a problem with that. Hope everything goes well with your new relationship. I wish you all the best. Did you send this to her?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Just a minute. You have 1 ring, correct?
Yes, I do.
Well, who's supposed to pay for that ring?
Well, she actually gave it to me as a gift, and she was asking me to pay for it.
Let me see it.
So the ring?
Yeah.
I didn't bring it, Your Honor. I forgot it.
Mr. Moten, you're really annoying me. I mean, you did get a copy of her counterclaim, did you not, about the ring?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Well, how could you not bring it if I wanted to look at it? How much was the ring that he has in his possession?
Here's the original bill.
That's what I want to see.
Okay. And then there's the interest and stuff incurred because he didn't pay the original bill, which we agreed that we would each split half of the bill last month.
All right. How much was his ring?
It was the less expensive one on there.
So his ring was $200?
I believe so.
You get to keep the computer, madam. And he owes you $200 for his ring. That's all.
Advisor excused, you may step out.
Jenny Rose says ex-roommate Sheena Mashoud owes for the return of rent and a security deposit. Jenny also claims Sheena slandered her via the internet.
Miss Rose, you rented a room from the defendant, and according to your complaint, you were forced to move out early.
Yes.
You want prorated rent.
Yes.
You certainly want your security deposit back. And you want compensation for what you say were very nasty things that the defendant posted about you on the internet.
That's correct.
The defendant says that you chose to move out. You don't get compensated for choosing to leave before the end of the 30 days. That your cat did some damage to the rug, so you don't get your security back. And she acknowledges she wrote nasty things about you on the internet, but she said everything she wrote about you was the truth, and the truth is a perfect defense. True. When did you move into this room, Ms. Rose?
On May 1st. On April 22nd, I answered an ad.
Do you recall what it said?
It said that I was going to be a roommate, that it was $400 for the rent, that she had 3 cats, and 1 more would be great. And
no, just a second. That's not what the ad said.
Yes, it did. It said she had 3 cats and 1 more would be great.
Oh, that's what the ad said?
Yes.
It must be a very long ad. Where was it?
Craigslist.com.
.org. .org. Correction. Tell me what happened when you went and looked in the house.
It was 11 o'clock at night. She said that it was dirty, but she would clean it, and that the hot water in the sink was broken, the pipe, but she would fix it before I moved in, and the toilet that I was renting out with the bathroom was broken as well, but that would be fixed as well.
How many rooms did you look at?
3 different rooms, and this is the one that I chose.
This is the one that had a broken sink, a broken toilet, and was filthy. Is the one that you chose, Miss Rose?
Actually, it was the rent. It was cheaper than normal. Others were asking for $650, so I figured I was only going to be here till the summer. It should not be an issue.
Was the toilet fixed?
No, the toilet was never fixed, and neither was the hot water, which I had to eat out because I couldn't wash dishes. There were maggots in the sink. There were roaches, flies.
Who else lived in the house?
It was supposed to be just myself and Sheena, and she brought her crackhead mother in, who has no teeth and has tattoos everywhere, who she failed to mention was an ex-convict who had been in jail for 12 years for a violent crime. Not only that, but...
Just a second. When you moved in May 1st, was her mother there?
No, her mother was not there.
When did her mother move in?
Her mother started coming by in the middle of May and started hanging out, bringing her other crackhead friends who had no teeth.
I'm a dentist's daughter. Let's not talk about the teeth. Let's talk about the drugs. Okay. What makes you think that she was using crack?
Because I came home the night before I moved out, and her friend were smoking crack in the living room.
That would give me a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your mother incarcerated for, Miss Mashoud?
I believe it was theft, and she violated her parole several times.
She violated her parole because of her drug use?
No, it had to do with the fact that she wasn't seeing her probation officer like she was supposed to when she was released early.
Listen, if you're released early and you want to stay out of jail, unless you're involved with drugs, you usually see your probation officer.
Well, actually, the problem was that she moved back to Colorado without asking her probation officer, and she stayed out there for 3 years.
Well, that would be a problem.
Yes, obviously, as the rule was that she was supposed to keep in contact.
How long was she incarcerated?
I'm not sure. I never lived with my mom as a child, so.
When was she released from prison?
At least 5 years ago.
How come she started to come to your house?
Because I previously, before she had ever moved in, had paid my mom to come to my house to clean my apartment because I work 18-hour days. I have 2 different jobs. I work a bar job at night, and during the day I'm a special effects makeup artist. I work very hard, and I don't have time to spend, even if it is 4 hours that I get to sleep, to spend cleaning up my apartment.
You mean there's nobody else that could clean your apartment other than your mother?
Well, I don't trust anybody else to come into my apartment because I have many things that are worth a lot of money.
So what you're telling me is you trust your mother?
Yes, I do.
The mother who she says, and I believe her,
yes,
invited somebody into your home and they were smoking dope in your house.
Nobody else other than my mom was invited into my home.
Well, she did. Bring somebody else into your home.
I had never seen the person.
Well, I'm telling you, she did. She did, so your judgment wasn't very good. In choosing your mother, listen to me, your judgment wasn't very good in choosing your mother to clean your house.
I believe my judgment was just fine. Aside from the fact that she had been incarcerated before, it doesn't mean that she would do anything like that again.
Well, but she brought somebody, listen to me, she brought somebody into your house and they were smoking dope in your house.
I'm glad you believe her, but I don't know that that's true. I know that my mom has not been on drugs for many years. I know that she does have permanent psychosis because of doing drugs for many years, and that is true. But she is not a current drug user, otherwise I wouldn't bring her into my house because I wouldn't trust her around my stuff personally.
Ms. Mashoud, that's your problem. You want to have this unabiding faith in your mother with whom you say you never resided when you were growing up, who was incarcerated most of that time. That's up to you. I absolutely, 100% believe her when she says that she came home the day before she moved out and your mother was in the house smoking dope, which, as far as I'm concerned, gives her the right to leave in the middle of the month.
Well,
I'm speaking. What day of the month did you move out?
It was the 18th.
So you want prorated rent for the 12 days that you weren't there?
That's correct.
Okay, and how much does that come to?
$146.50.
My mother had not moved in at that point. She was a guest of mine.
Excuse me?
Shh. Listen to me. She doesn't. Listen to me very carefully, Miss Michoud. She doesn't. Listen, try to listen. I know you got a lot going on in your hair and your face, everything else, but try to pay attention. She doesn't have to live in your house. You have invited a guest into your home, your mother, who was involved in behavior that I believe could have endangered someone else who was living in the house. If the police had come to your house and found your mother and someone else in possession of crack cocaine in your house, everyone in the house would have been involved in that drug sweep. So she was very smart to move out. And since you have acknowledged that you invited your mother into the house for the purposes of cleaning, you can't say she had no right to move. She did have a right to move. And since you invited this problem into your house, you have to compensate her for the 12 days in rent that she did not have use and enjoyment of her room.
Well,
that's my ruling. You may not like it. That's why you go to
her boyfriend.
That's
is a
why
speed addict,
I'm speaking.
and he's in
listen,
my and he
listen
was
to
staying
me.
in my house.
Listen to me very
For
carefully.
the whole time she was there.
Listen to me very carefully, madam. I don't know where else you work or what else you do to enhance your senses, but in my courtroom, I speak, I listen.
Obviously, you don't listen very well.
You don't. I'm listening. You're not hearing what I'm saying because you don't like the answer. How much is your security?
$200. I have a copy of the sublease as well.
Can I see it, please?
And I have a copy of the letter she told me to vacate immediately.
Okay.
She wanted me to pay for her mother's rent for the next month.
Listen. Did you write this letter? There will be a $500 rent increase for your bedroom and private bathroom starting July 1st. Did you write this?
Yes, that's what
All right, good.
Hutchinson told me to do.
$146.50 and $200 for your security deposit. Do you have any pictures of the ruined rug that was allegedly caused by her cats?
No, but
Good. Now I would like to see what was written on the internet.
This is a networking site that my coworkers, my supervisors and boss, as well as my family and friends read. I was contacted by one of my coworkers.
Well, the one thing I do know for sure, Miss Michoud, is that you have a filthy mouth.
Thank you.
And I assume that you work in this town?
Yes, I do.
Good. I certainly hope that enough people, since we do have a reasonable audience in this town, watch this and know that I personally am offended that a woman would use the kind of vulgarities that you do written. I don't think, quite frankly, Miss Rose, that any fair-minded, reasonable person would accept anything that you wrote here as true.
Oh, of course not.
Because she clearly is a demented, sick girl. I don't know how she finds work in this town, but clearly there are a lot of demented, sick people who want demented, sick employees. That's the problem here sometimes. I can't judge that. Clearly, this is miserable. I'm not going to ask her how she's going to establish to my satisfaction that you committed the kinds of sex acts that she attributes to you, because certainly you don't want that, and I wouldn't, because it's really unseemly. Suffice, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Am I going to speak at all this?
No, go speak outside. Somebody who wants to hear you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $346.50. Thank you.
Toodles.
Gina Guy says ex-boyfriend Richard Archer owes for a loan to have emergency dental work done. Richard says Gina gave him the money.
Miss Guy, Mr. Archer was a boyfriend of yours, and you claimed that you made a loan to him for some dental work. He did not repay the loan, and in addition, when you tried to collect after you had terminated the relationship, he began harassing you. He says that the money that you gave him for his dental work was a gift. There was never any discussion of him repaying the money for the dental work, and that you are actually harassing him. Mr. Archer, When did you and Miss Guy start a relationship?
We started a relationship towards late during the summer, probably around August.
September 12th, Your Honor.
Is that what it was, September 12th?
Of what?
September 12th of 2008.
Did you at any time during that relationship live together?
No.
When was it, Mr. Archer, that you found yourself in need of dental work?
Actually, we were in the pool one day, Your Honor.
In the pool?
Yeah, in her swimming pool. And she brought up that she was going to go in and have some dental work done and get some cleaning done. And she was scheduling appointments for her daughter. And I said, well, yeah, that's something I got to get done when I have the money, when I'm financially capable of having it done. And she says, well, I really got a good dental plan down the street here. Why don't we get you in? And I said, well, I don't have the money to do this right now. So, right now wouldn't be a good time. A few weeks went by. She kept encouraging me to go in there. So finally I went in there.
What did you go in for?
Basically just x-rays and a cleaning. And it turned out that I needed a root canal and some fillings as well.
Did you have any pain, Mr. Archer?
No, I didn't have any pain at the time.
How did you know that you had problems that required a root canal?
I didn't know that I needed a root canal until they started getting in there and digging in my mouth. So they seen that on the x-rays, they seen that I needed a root canal. And then that's when it was brought to our attention, the total amount, which was $1,717.
So first the dentist took the x-rays.
Correct.
And I should tell you, Mr. Archer, so that you don't feel as if you've been coerced or fooled.
Okay.
Both my father and my brother are dentists.
Okay.
So first they took x-rays.
Okay, yes.
And after the x-rays were taken, you had a consultation?
I had a consultation.
With whom?
With the dentist.
Who was present during the consultation?
Present in the consultation was me and the dentist and the RDA, and then they had notified her.
Don't tell me who they notified.
Okay.
All I asked you was who was present during the consultation.
Just the dentist and the RDA.
They told you that the bill was $1,717.
Correct. That's the work we were looking at.
And what was the next thing that you did?
The next thing I did was just said stop right there, and they notified her. That
Don't tell me what they notified. That's hearsay.
I said stop right there, Your Honor.
And did you leave?
No, I didn't. I stayed in the chair. And
what did you stay in the chair for?
I stayed in the chair so they could contact her and let her know.
Who told them to contact her? It's not an answer.
She did.
She told them to contact her after your x-rays?
Doesn't look like I'm getting any water.
Is that what you think? Yeah, well, you usually don't need water right away.
No, just my mouth is dry.
Would you get Mr. Archer? Maybe there's water in that carafe. He seems not to have any water.
No, Judge Judy,
included.
she told me to call her and let her know what the bill was going to be. Okay?
It's all in the wrist.
Thank you.
Thank you. So she told you to call her and let her know what the bill was going to be. Did you call her?
Yes.
You just told me that they called her.
And they called her too as well.
No. When did you call her?
Right there, right after they called her.
Well, why wouldn't you call her?
Well, actually, because I had a bunch of cotton in my mouth at the time.
Well, you had just had a consultation with them.
Well, yeah, they just came in and the cotton was still in my mouth and they were just explaining to me on the computer.
Cotton was still in your mouth from what?
From them lodging things in there. My gums were bleeding.
No, they just took x-rays.
Yeah, because they had the x-ray pieces in my mouth in there and it disrupted some of my gums.
No, they must have been a lousy dentist.
Actually, a really good dentist.
Absolutely not. I never had bleeding gums from taking x-rays.
Okay.
You ever have bleeding gums from taking an x-ray?
No.
Taking x-ray? No. Doesn't happen. Mr. Archer, you are so full of baloney. Now that we've finished Once Upon a Time,
thank you,
and the Three Bears and Goldilocks, how come you got involved with his dental work?
Because he was in the chair and was having the trouble that he had.
What trouble was he having?
Well,
so far I haven't heard any. Listen to me, Miss Guy. So far I haven't heard any trouble. So far I heard that he was in no pain, he had no money, and he went to the dentist. And they did x-rays, and they were going to do a cleaning, and they found that he needed all this dental work, but he was in no pain. So I want you to tell me, is that what happened?
I can only testify when I came into the scene. He sent me a text message from the chair stating, they've got my mouth open, they said it's an emergency, I have an abscess. That's why he went in, because he was in pain in his mouth.
That's what you said in your complaint.
I did. That's why I'm saying that was what happened.
So he had pain.
Exactly. So
when did he tell you he had pain? For the first time?
For the first time when when we were dating. At some point he said, I'm having a lot of pain in my mouth. So he made an appointment to follow through on the pain that he was having in his mouth.
You suggested your dentist?
I suggested my dentist. I had a dentist. My house is across the street from where my girls and I have our own plan. I'm a single mom. I can't put people on my plan. So that's where my girls and I go.
What kind of work do you do, Miss Guy?
I own a fitness ministry, Praise Aerobics.
And what do you do, Mr. Archer?
I'm a master physical trainer.
Do you work in her place? Is that how you met?
At the time, I was helping her, yes.
When was the last time you worked for Miss Guy? It's not an answer, Mr.
2 weeks
Archer.
before December.
He never worked for me, just so I can state that.
Oh,
he was
no,
never an
but I
employee. Did not work for me. He was not a paid employee, no.
That's not true.
Do you get a check from her or cash?
Actually, at the time, you know, I was doing a lot of things for her. And
Like
she
what?
was, well, I was teaching her spine elongation techniques and helping her with her back because she has a spine injury. And I was teaching yoga and stretching classes for her clients as well.
For her clients in her establishment?
Correct.
And you were compensated for that?
No, I didn't ask for anything, okay? She was helping me out with my mouth, and I also did other things as well for her, you know.
Like what?
There was gym equipment inside her facility that needed to be tore down and repositioned and corrected, and there were multiple stations, and I did that.
And are you telling me, sir, you told me once before that you worked for her. Work for her usually involves some financial remuneration.
Okay.
Are you telling me that you were not compensated for what you did?
No, not cash-wise, no.
Okay. Now, how long did you do all this work? Months, weeks?
It was during the relationship.
And how long did that last?
4 months.
When did you go to the dentist?
I probably went to the dentist in the second month of our relationship.
What month did he go to the dentist?
October 2nd, Your Honor.
And you put the money on your credit card when he called you and said he had an abscess? Is that what happened?
Correct.
So, Mr. Archer.
Yes.
What you are asking me to believe is, as an old jurist
Okay.
and a dentist's daughter,
Okay.
that it was sheer serendipity that you went for x-rays
Okay.
and they found an acute abscess that
Yes.
required root canal on the spot and a post and crown. Just a second. I'm
Okay.
just asking.
Okay,
That
I'm sorry.
requires
Go
a
ahead.
yes, it was pure serendipity,
Okay.
or no, I was in a little bit of pain, and we may have discussed that I was in a little bit of pain.
Okay.
Which one would you like me to believe?
I went to do a checkup to see what was causing the pain.
Ah, there we have it. That makes my job so much easier because it was not the baloney story you gave me before. You know, when we air this segment,
Okay.
Mr. Archer, you're going to have to watch what you told me before.
Okay.
Because, you see, you are a prime example of if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
Okay.
But if you don't tell the truth, you really have to have a good memory, sir, because otherwise I make you look like an idiot. How much
okay.
does he owe you?
The dental bill's $2,000, but I'm definitely suing for more than that.
I gave her
believe
$500
You gave him $500 for what?
on top of the dental bill.
What do you mean you gave him $500 on top of the dental
Oh, I
bill?
thought it was a gift.
2 weeks later, I gave her $500 a gift. Yeah, right.
Just a minute. Hold on a second. 2 weeks later, you gave her $500 for what?
The bill
But don't look at me. Don't point your finger at me. 2 weeks. I'm looking at your answer.
Okay.
I don't see anything in your answer about $500.
No, but I
so
did. But I did give it to her.
For what?
For the bill, to help her out. Just like I was helping her out around the house as well, with her business.
Like crazy.
So it dropped it to $1,200. And now she's lying about it.
Hey, listen. If you were honest with me to begin with and said to me, look, it was a loan, but I gave her $500. I don't owe her. Uncross your hands. Uncross your hands. I don't owe her $1,700. I gave her $500. Then we would be in business. You have given me 3 distinct stories. One you wrote in your answer. One you told me just a moment ago when I was about to enter a judgment for. But I gave her $500 for what? As a gift? You gave her $500 as a gift? You gave her $500 towards the dental bill because you owed her money for the dental bill. That's
I
why
didn't
you
borrow
gave.
the money from
That's
her, though.
why you gave her money for the dental bill.
But I didn't borrow the
Just
money
because
from
I
her.
hate liars. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,700. That's all. Step out.
Terry Taylor is suing her foster daughter, 20-year-old Christy Tomier, for SUV payments, parking tickets, and impound fees.
Ms. Taylor, the defendant is your former foster child.
That's correct.
She came to live with you as a teenager for a period of time, and you continued a relationship with her, according to your complaint, so that she felt comfortable enough to come back into your home subsequently, and you agreed at some point to co-sign for a truck for her. so that she would be independent and be able to go to work and go to school and do stuff. So you did. And it was her understanding and your agreement and your contract that she was going to make the payments on this truck. Take your hands out of your pockets. She was going to make the payments on this truck. Well, the defendant did make payments on the truck for a period of time. She met a boy, got married, had a baby, not necessarily in that order, but she and her husband subsequently separated, and she stopped making payments on the truck. Not only did she stop making payments on the truck, but she couldn't find the right place to park, so she got some parking tickets, and ultimately her car was impounded, probably for those parking tickets. You were contacted by the bank, cost you a whole bunch of money to get the car out of towing to pay off the car, and you want her to be responsible and take care of those bills. That's what the case is about.
Correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Go.
I paid on the car for 2 years, paid $3,000 on it. Up until 9/16 was my September, October, November, December. I missed 4 payments in a row.
You missed 4
payments in a row.
Okay. When was the last time you made a payment? In September?
August.
So you missed September?
Yes.
October, November, and December.
Yes.
You missed 4 months.
On Christmas Eve, I thought the vehicle was stolen because I went out to go home for the weekend, and the car was gone. And it was just odd. I thought that they had taken it back because the payments were late. And the night before...
No, they weren't late. They weren't made for 4 months. Late is when you miss a couple of days.
I wasn't working when my husband and I were married. He up and left one day. Since that point, I know it seems like I was irresponsible. Since that point, I got a place to live on my own, by myself, with no financial help.
Well, that is great. Why'd you get parking tickets? Because that's why the car was towed.
Because I parked in the wrong spot.
How many times?
Twice. And then I got another parking lot ticket down the street for being there for a meter or whatever. I got 2 more of those. So I had quite a few parking tickets.
How many?
I think 5 total, maybe 4.
How many?
I have 8
parking tickets.
Different kinds of tickets.
Yes.
Can I see it?
They're listed on the...
And when I found out the car had been taken, I still had 30 days to come up with the money. I called her 4 days later to let her know what happened, and I told her that I would come up with the money to get the car out, and I would do my best to start making payments on it again.
Doing your best doesn't help.
Take
your hands out of your pockets. Doing your best doesn't help. I mean, I'm not screaming and ranting and raving at you. If your husband left you and he left you with a baby and you were trying to get yourself together and you found a place to live, all of that is great. Then what you have to say to her, Ms. Tomier, is, and I know that you're looking upset, but what you have to say to her is, look.
I still had time to make the payments before she made the payments for me.
She's a co-signer on your loan. Her credit is destroyed because you didn't make payments for 4 months.
I still
did
had
you
time.
call?
Yes,
you didn't have. You don't
I
have
did.
time.
The bank said I still had 30 days,
Ms.
and so did the pound place.
You don't have time when you miss payments for 4 months. What you're supposed to do is, if you can, renegotiate with them and say, listen, I can't make these payments. Could I cut them in half? Could I cut them in a quarter? Things are difficult now. But you didn't do that. You didn't do that. And you didn't even call her and tell her that...
I did call her.
Did you call her and tell her you hadn't made the payments September, October,
We talked
November?
many times about it. Yes, we did, because we talked many times, and she's like, Christy, you just need to call him. And I said, I know, I haven't made the payments. And
Just
she
a
just need to
second.
call him.
I know, I haven't made the payments. That's not what she said to you. She said you have to call them and try to redo something with this loan.
And I did that, and I still had time before she paid up the money.
Just a second. Show me. You show me something in writing that the bank was willing to give you more time after you missed 4 payments. Show me.
They told me I don't have that.
Now, don't tell me what they told you. Show
I don't
me.
have that.
Of course you don't. And now, after she got the car out of towing, because I have the bills, she got the car out of towing, and she paid the bank off.
So my 30 days that I have doesn't matter?
Listen to me. I'm not telling you you had 30 days. You can't show me that you had 30 days. Now that she had to get your car out of impound, which cost how much?
$360.
Okay, $360. In addition to what you owed them for 4 months. And the tickets.
Which were $695.
$695 for the tickets. Otherwise, you couldn't get the car out of impound. Do you understand? The likelihood of you having $1,100,
I had that money within 11 days.
$1,100 plus the 4 months that you owed them on the car is little to none.
I had the money to pay it all off within 11 days. I still have 30 days.
Then you should have paid her.
But I lost thousands of dollars. I'm paying for taxis. I don't have a vehicle. How should I have paid her?
Listen to me. If you had take your hands out of your pockets. If you had said to her before now, what's your first name?
Terry.
Terry, I appreciate everything you did for me. I understand what the problem is. I understand that I screwed up with you. May not have screwed up with other things, but I understand that I screwed up with you and your credit. I can give you $50 a month towards what I owe you for cleaning up after my mess. I don't want you to be out of money. I can't pay you all at once. I have other expenses to pay. I have other bills. I'll give you $50 a month. That's what you should do.
I tried calling her twice, and both times I got hung up on.
What did you say to her when you called?
The first time I called to tell her that the car wasn't stolen, that it had been repossessed, and I told her that within 3 weeks I would be able to get it out. 2 days later, she paid for it all to get out. So I not only lost the car, I lost a lot of money. And then I called her again right after I found out I was getting sued, and I was just like, you're suing me, you haven't even, you know, we can't work this out any other way. And she said, no, we want our money back. You have 30 days to pay us or we're suing you. But I still had time on my account. Within 11 days, I could have had the vehicle out.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,089. That's all.
Russell White is suing his neighbor, Adalberto Flores, for the cost to fix his car. Russell says Adalberto's daughters wrote on the vehicle with chalk.
Mr. Flores, we thought it best that your 4-year-old little girl, who was the subject of this case, was here to me to be a little bit upset about being here. I don't think it's necessary for her to be here. If it is, I'll have to see her in chambers. Clear?
Yeah.
All right. Mr. White, you and Mr. Flores are neighbors?
Yes.
And your children played together for some period of time until recently?
Yes, Your Honor.
It is your claim that Mr. Flores is responsible for some damage that his daughters did to your car.
Yes.
You fixed the car, and you really want Mr. Flores to pay your insurance deductible, which is $500.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Flores says that there's no evidence that his girls caused any damage to your car.
Yes, Your Honor.
Who caused the damage to your car and when, Mr. White?
Well, on October the 13th, I was working 3 to 11. When I came home that evening, I noticed some damage on my car.
You have photographs of it?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please. What was it, chalk?
It was chalk, and it was like someone had scribbled on the back of it.
It's hard to see in these photographs.
Yeah, it's hard because of the color of the car.
Yeah, but I do see sort of circular motions.
Yes.
Got it. Now, you weren't there. What makes you think his girls did the damage?
I have a witness that saw this occur.
Well, then I'll hear the witness. Bert, can we get a witness? I assume they're outside.
How you doing?
Swear the witness, please.
Sir, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth in these matters?
Yes, sir.
State your name for the record, please.
Alfredo Warren.
Mr. Warren, are you a neighbor of these people?
No, ma'am. I stay in South Bend, Indiana.
Okay. Mr. White said you observed something that happened with his car.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you a friend of his?
No, ma'am.
What were you doing near his house?
I was up there visiting with some friends, and on this particular day, I was sitting in the car while someone else went in the house. And I just noticed 2 small kids of they wasn't black, but they was like maybe mixed or Mexican or some kind of race. And the smallest one was riding on the car from like the trunk part, and I seen her go around the side.
And what was the other one doing?
Sitting like on the sidewalk.
Go ahead.
So the next day, when I was coming back to drop this girl off, I so happened to see the person that was getting to the car that had been rode on.
Was that this gentleman?
It was this gentleman. So I asked him, did he have kids? And I said, well, I think I seen your kids riding on your car. And so he said, no, it wasn't my kids, but my car was vandalized yesterday. And I told him if he needed any help, I just gave my number. And then I got a call at work, and I heard about the whole issue.
Would you recognize those children again?
Yeah, probably if I seen them, yes, ma'am.
Would you recognize the older child?
Well, I mainly just seen the small one riding on the car.
Did you see the one who was sitting down?
She was like at the head of the car. So I just noticed a head, you know, like you just glance, because I'm looking through my rearview mirror. And so that's how I seen it.
Do you recognize this young lady here?
I don't know if that's the youngest one. Because she was shorter, and this was like, it's been like some months ago.
Okay. Byrd, would you take Mr. Warren outside to where Mr. Flores' youngest daughter is and ask him if he has seen her before? Okay?
All right.
Mr. Warren, why don't you go with Officer Byrd? Now, before Mr. Warren comes back, you step up here. Right over here. You hop up in that chair. Tell me. All right, Jessica. So before this gets any worse, did your sister ride on Mr. White's car?
No.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Do you know anybody who damaged Mr. White's car?
No.
And you weren't present that day, sitting there while your little sister either took a piece of chalk or anything else and rode on Mr. White's car?
No.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. Go and have a seat. All right, Mr. Warren, did you see the little girl who was outside?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize that
That's
little
the
girl?
child. That's the one I seen.
That's the little girl who rode on the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to October 13th, you had never met the plaintiff, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you positive that the other young lady that you saw outside, the little four-year-old?
Yes, ma'am. That's the one I seen right on the car.
Okay. What do you have to say for yourself, Mr. Flores?
They running a game.
What?
I said they running a game because she don't go outside without her sister. So I don't know what he talking about that he see my only 4-year-old outside.
Listen to me very carefully, sir. Nobody's running a game. Your daughter fibbed to you. This one. This man doesn't know him. I believe him. That's my job.
Oh, okay.
To determine who's telling the truth.
All right.
He didn't say to me, yes, I recognize her. He said, I'm not sure. It's been a while ago.
Right.
But when he went outside and saw your little girl, who he was watching right on the car, he was able to identify her, and I believe him. So you better have your girls a little bit more in check. Anything else you want to say to me?
Yeah, I think she didn't do it.
Well, you keep going in that direction, and you're going to be standing in court a lot with your daughters. A lot. I've given you all the reasons. Somebody rode on his car and vandalized it. I'm speaking. You may get away with that with your wife. You don't get away with it with me. We have an independent witness who saw 2 children, one older, one younger. The younger one was riding on the car. And he says there's no question in his mind it was your daughter. And you said, I don't believe it. Why? Your daughters never lied to you?
No.
Baloney.
They ain't the only ones that live in. They ain't the only little girls that live in the block.
Just a second. He said it was your daughter. Certainly they're not the only children living on the block.
He don't even live around there.
Oh, you're an
He
idiot.
live in Sound Bay.
You're an idiot. You're going to spend a lot of time in court, both for yourself and your children. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Basil Aziz is suing comedy club owner Jay Robertson for the cash prize from a Player of the Year contest. Jay says Basil was the only contestant to show up.
Mr. Aziz, according to your complaint, Mr. Robertson is the owner of a club that you have been to in the past, and you saw some sort of an advertisement that indicated that on a particular day he was going to have a contest. You claimed that you went to the contest, that you won the contest, and that Mr. Robertson didn't pay I think it was $1,000, is that right? That he indicated in the flyer was going to be the prize. Mr. Robertson's defense is that not enough people showed up, so that the contest never took place.
Correct.
Okay. Can I see the flyer that notified the public about this contest? Your club is in Virginia, sir?
Yes.
What kind of club is it?
It's a comedy club.
And you had these prepared?
Yes, I did.
Where did you send them?
They was on all sides of town, all over.
Okay. It says $1,000 to be awarded to the Player of the Year. Now, according to your complaint, Mr. Aziz, there was an entrance fee.
I paid that.
I don't see it where it said there was an entrance fee here. What was the entrance fee?
$50 or $100.
Well, who made the decision whether it was 50 or 100?
I did. Originally, how it was all going to be set up, it's going to be $150.
How come you didn't put that down here, sir?
Because I put on, the reason why I put it on there so more people can call. That's why I put on there for more info, call.
Okay. And when people called, what did you tell them?
That's when I was telling them that it was $150. With the $150, that would take care of you, you know, far as for drinks and everything, plus entering into the contest.
Okay. All right, Mr. Aziz, you got to the club on June 4th?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much did you pay when you got there?
$50.
Who did you give the money to?
The lady at the door.
What was the name of that lady?
That was the ticket lady. Her name was Lisa. And how it was set up, Lisa was to inform anyone who wanted to do the contest. That particular time, we has changed everything from the $150 to where that if you want to do the whole contest, it would be $100.
You can't do, Mr. Robertson.
He changed it too much.
Let me explain something to you. You can't do that, sir. What you're telling me is depending upon your mood, how you felt, or whatever. Sometimes you told people that it was $150. Then it was something else because you changed all the rules.
Well, all the rules...
Mr. Robertson, you can't do that, sir.
All the rules stayed the same. And how the whole contest was supposed to be set up was, I had 5 women. That was going to be a panel. You had to go up on the stage. You had to explain to them why you should be the player of the year. They was going to tally up their votes. That never happened.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Robertson. How come it never happened?
Because the only person that really came, because after, when I got back to the club...
The only person that came was?
Right here.
Do you know what that makes him? You know what that makes him? Player of the year.
Thank you. Go ahead, tell me. You want to tell me? He never told me.
Mr. Robertson, when you run a contest and you have somebody that enters, like he did, and paid his money, and you didn't get enough people so that it could be the kind of event you wanted, but there were a lot of people in your club that night, right? How many people were in the club?
I had...
How many people were in the club?
I had a lot of ladies at that particular time.
Right.
And then later on, that's when...
You had a lot of ladies. Would you say you had 200 people?
Something like that.
Line was around the corner.
Hey. You had 200 people, and was that a usual Saturday night, sir?
Something like that.
Did you have more ladies that Saturday night than you usually have?
Yeah, at that particular time.
You think that's because you advertised the Players' Ball?
Well, that was the catch, to get the ladies to
Right. Come. So you got what your advertising paid for, Mr. Robertson. Now you have to pay up. The winner. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all. Thank
Parties are excused when they step out.
Brenda Jones says ex-boyfriend Thomas Moses Jr. owes for bail money and a loan to retain an attorney. Brenda claims Thomas lied about being married.
Miss Jones, you and Mr. Moses were in a relationship for a brief period of time, and according to your complaint, you made 2 loans to him.
That's right.
One involved some criminal restitution, and the other was a loan for an attorney so that he could start divorce proceedings. I assume that this is your wife.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are currently reconciled with your wife. And according to you, Miss Jones did not make loans to you. These were acts of generosity on her part, and there was no expectation that she was going to be repaid. Is that right, Mr. Moses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did you leave your wife?
I left my wife November 22nd.
2005.
04.
04. But I would watch myself on the 22nd of November. And when did you meet Miss Jones?
Met Miss Jones January the 2nd.
January the 3rd.
Where?
I actually met her off the chat line.
So you started to communicate with each other on the internet?
Yes, ma'am.
That is not true.
Where did you meet?
My car was broke down when I was coming out of the tanning bed at a strip mall, and he was coming out of a little place called Deals. And I asked him would he give me a boost. He said, yes, I don't have jumper cables. I said, I do. And he asked me, was I married? I said, no. Are you married? He said, no. And it kind of
So
took
that's
off.
how you met?
That's how we met.
And then you started to communicate on the internet?
No, we started communicating on the telephone.
Is that right?
Telephone come from the chat line, yes. And we actually met. That was our meeting place at Deals parking lot.
Did you first meet her at Deals parking lot, Mr. Moses, when she asked you for a jumper?
I met her there, but I've talked to her on the chat line.
Before?
Before.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you start speaking to her on the chat line?
Probably December 30th.
That is not true.
So you're telling me 3 days later you met her at Deals?
That's when she wanted to meet.
Right, so it's interesting. Okay. Now, when was the first time, Miss Jones, you gave him money?
It was February the 23rd. I got a phone call in the middle of the night from he and his daughter on a two-way call stating he'd been arrested falsely for beating his wife up and wanted to know, could I come and bond him out?
Now, you had been dating between the 3rd of January and February 23rd?
Yes.
How much did he need to bail him out?
Initially, it was $10,000, so I'd need $1,000. So I went to the bank and drew the money out. And when I got to the bondsman, they cut him some type of deal, and it was $837.
Well, you have to tell me about the conversation that you had. What did he say to you, and what did you say to him?
On that particular night at midnight, he asked if I indeed would come and bail him out. He would be able to pay me that Friday. I believe that was on a Sunday. And he makes pretty good money, and, you know, so I knew he could afford to give the whole $837 or a whole $1,000. I thought it was going to be $1,000 at that point.
Did he say, I'll give you the money on Friday?
Friday, yes.
Did he give you the money on Friday?
He said he was having some financial problem, gave me $400.
Did you give her $400, Mr. Moses?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the $400 for?
It's for getting me out of jail.
So you acknowledge that this was a loan?
It wasn't a loan. I just told her I would give her $400 back. I mean, I appreciate it. It was my appreciation to her for getting me out. I mean, I just met her, you know, and it was nice of her to get me out of jail.
Just a second. When did you give her the $400?
That Friday, the following Friday.
Just a second. So you called her from jail and you said, could you bond me out? You didn't say anything to her about giving you back money on Friday.
No, ma'am.
It just happens to be that on that Friday you gave her $400.
Yeah, out of generosity, because she was generous enough to get me out of jail, so I told her I'd give her what I could Friday, and I could give her $400.
Oh, now your story's changed, Mr. Moses.
No.
Now you said that you told her you'd give her what you could on Friday.
Yeah.
Well, that's different from not saying anything to saying, I told her I'd give her what I could. And what you could give her on Friday was $400. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
When was the next time Mr. Moses needed money?
It was about 4 weeks later. He told me he had a...
Just a minute. Between that Friday and 4 weeks later, you mean he didn't give you any more money?
He gave me $150, $50 increments.
When?
Actually, the first payment was $517.
No. Just answer my questions. Now you say that he gave you money in $50 increments, another $150. Was that over the next 4 weeks?
No. There was no money exchanged between the initial loan and the second loan.
That's what I want to know. So tell me what happened 4 weeks later.
Well, when I met him, he told me he was not married, okay? Or make that clear. Then I find out that he's got a lawyer that he's dealing with that's no count, okay? So he says he's not helping him. He's not helping him to get his kids. His wife is not taking care of the children. He needed his kids desperately. And he knew I had some money saved up, okay? That's my first probably major mistake. And he asked me if I would help him get this new lawyer, put the $1,000 retainer fee. Once his divorce was final, his kids was in his home and they were stable. His financial situation was stabilized. Everything would be on target and he would be able to...
The check's in the mail.
Right.
So you gave him $1,000?
I wrote the $1,000 to the lawyer.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am. She had pushed me into divorce in my...
Well, explain that to me. How did she do that?
Well, first of all, I never lied to you about being married. I told her I was married and had 4 children and I was going to get a divorce. That was my goal, to get a divorce.
You were going to get a divorce because your wife was a very nice person?
I was going to get a divorce because we had some marital problems.
Well, some marital problems doesn't always talk about divorce, Mr. Moses. Did you actually come here thinking that you were going to run circles in this courtroom?
No, ma'am.
So you told Miss Jones that your wife wasn't caring for the children?
I did.
That you needed to get custody of your children?
I did. I needed them.
Because your children were at risk with your wife because she wasn't taking care of them?
My mother was watching them, actually, at my mother's house.
No, they were running back.
My mother was watching them.
Were they watching them because your wife has problems?
She was watching them because my wife was, yeah, she had problems.
Put your hand down. What kind of problems did your wife have?
She just had, like...
No, look at my face. Oh. What kind of problems did your wife have, Mr. Moses?
She had boyfriend problems. I mean...
Drug.
Did you tell the plaintiff that your wife had a drug problem?
Yes, ma'am.
Karnak. Now, you told Miss Jones that your wife couldn't take care of your children because she was abusing drugs and she had boyfriends, and you needed to get custody of your children.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, how does that translate, Mr. Moses, into she was pushing me to get a divorce from my wife?
Because she kept on me and telling me that she loved me and she wanted me to get divorced from my wife, and she would help me get my children and we could live together, and she kept forcing me to get a divorce.
Forcing you?
I didn't want a divorce.
What did you want? What did you want?
I wasn't clear about what I wanted at the time.
I have a feeling, how old are you?
I'm 44.
That is persistent state of your mind.
Absolutely.
Unclear.
Okay.
Now, you went back to your wife when, sir?
Went back to my wife on, I don't know.
Give me a month.
July the 22nd, just when I got a phone call from the wife.
7/22. Now, when you went back to your wife, sir, did your wife enter a drug rehabilitation program?
No, ma'am.
Then she's still using drugs.
No, ma'am.
Well, if one of the reasons you were having marital difficulties, sir, is because your wife was a drug abuser, and if she didn't enter a program, then she's still using drugs, unless you were lying to the plaintiff when you told her that your wife was a drug abuser. So which one is it? Were you lying to the plaintiff, or was your wife still abusing drugs?
She is not abusing drugs now. She's changed, or for whatever reason, I guess.
Miraculously abusing, sir?
Just marijuana and stuff.
No, what kind of stuff? Marijuana and what kind of stuff?
And, hydrocodone.
And what?
Hydrocodone.
What is that?
Lortabs.
Lortab.
What is that?
He told me some type of nerve pill.
It's a pain pill because she has lupus and she has a bunch of stuff wrong with her.
So she's not taking those pills anymore? She's not using marijuana anymore? Is that what you're telling me?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
So how come you decided to go home, sir?
For my kids, because things wasn't happening fast enough for me.
So you're home taking care of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you gave her $50 increments 3 times after the loan to the lawyer. What was that for?
It was for the jail.
It was for the jail?
Mm-hmm. For the get me out of jail.
So you were just being a nice guy then? That wasn't the loan?
It was never a loan. I never asked Miss Jones to get me out of jail.
Yes, you did.
Yes,
Yes, you did. You asked her to get you out of jail because otherwise she wouldn't have known that you were in jail, sir.
No, my daughter called her.
How old is your daughter?
18.
How did your daughter find out you were in jail?
I called. I called my house because my house.
You called your house and you spoke to your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And did you say to your daughter, call Miss Jones?
No, I did not.
Baloney!
I did not.
Listen, what's your first name?
Tommy. Thomas.
Slick Tommy, let me explain something to you. You don't take advantage of people and then just walk away. You clean up after your mess. You made a mess, you clean up after it. Bad enough that you involved this woman in your muddled mind, your 44-year-old bouillabaisse that you got going up there. But to take her money is unconscionable, sir. Unconscionable. You owe her $1,287. That's the remainder on the bail and the $1,000 for the lawyer that you, for some reason, decided that you didn't need because your children needed you, which is a very nice thing. You decided to go back to your wife for your children's sake. Very nice. I would suggest to you that it doesn't serve your children well if your wife is abusing drugs to live with her. And if your wife isn't abusing drugs, then you told this lady a fib. Because unless somebody gets into a program, if they are drug abusers, they don't stop. Goodbye. $1,287 is what you owe her.
21-year-old Dana Anthony is suing her former live-in boyfriend, Ryan Anderson, for his share of 2 months' rent and for half of a lease termination fee.
Miss Anthony, the defendant was your boyfriend. You signed a 1-year lease on an apartment with him. He moved out prior to the termination of the lease. You want him to be responsible for certain fees and rent.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson says that you made it impossible for him to live there, and that's why he moved out. Is this the new boyfriend?
Yes.
Stand up. I have a few questions for you. Last name is?
Talbert.
Mr. Talbert, when did you meet Miss Anthony?
First week of December, maybe a day before.
And at that time, Miss Anthony, you and Mr. Anderson were sharing the apartment together.
Yes.
But you had already terminated your relationship.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Talbert, During the month of December 2008, how many nights did Miss Anthony spend in your home?
Roughly 10 to 12 of those nights in my home.
Thank you. You could be seated.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And this is Mr. Anderson's defense to moving out early and not paying you. See, he said that you had a one-bedroom apartment and you elected to take the bedroom when you separated.
I took the bedroom because I purchased all the furniture in the apartment, and when we broke up, we made an agreement that he would stay in the living room and I would get the bedroom. I said, anytime I'm not there, feel free to stay in the bedroom. I'm not there. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Mr. Anderson says that he did just that. He didn't tell me that that was an agreement that you had. Was that an agreement?
Yes, sir. Or, ma'am.
But did move into the bedroom. And when you came home and found him in the bedroom, you put a lock on the bedroom door.
He did not move into the bedroom. He was never in there.
Then, Mr. Anderson, your defense to this action is that she made it impossible for you to live there, which is why you moved out on December 31st. Tell me how she made it impossible for you to live there.
Well, obviously, since we were no longer together, I was just basically, when I was home, trying to keep to myself, just kind of stay out of her way, leave her alone. And she was constantly flaunting, you know, that she had moved on, that she was with somebody else. You know, I obviously had no way of knowing if she was, but that's what was being said to me. There was an agreement about the bedroom. I did use it a few times, but it was a little weird, you know, still with her stuff being in there, but it was a room and her cats weren't in there, so I used it. And then I came home one day, and I looked down and there had been a deadbolt installed on the bedroom door. And the only reason I had access to any clothes or anything for the weekend was because I had left a load of clothes in the dryer. Everything I owned aside from a load of clothes and my computer was in the bedroom.
Why did you put a deadbolt on?
It was not a deadbolt.
What was it?
It was a regular lock, like
Why?
a bathroom door lock.
Why?
Because he was getting threatening, because he was jealous and he was insecure that I was out having fun and he was stuck at home. And he would grill.
Just a second. Miss Anthony, how did it make any difference if you put a plain old lock on the bedroom door? You weren't sleeping there anyway, most of the time. So why would you put a lock on the bedroom door? Why?
Because he kept getting threatening and asking me and questioning me about where I go, what I'm doing, and when it's none of his business.
But what difference does it make, Miss Anthony?
Because he kept pushing the fact that he wanted the bedroom, and that if I had the bedroom, I should pay more. But then he wouldn't want to pay more if he had the bedroom.
All right. Miss Anthony, I agree with him. By putting a lock on the bedroom door, you effectively, constructively evicted him from part of his home. And you can't do that. And if that's what you did, you have to take care of the rent yourself. And, I mean, it may have been uncomfortable and was probably a very good idea that one of you left. But the fact that you precipitated it by changing the rules and putting a lock on the bedroom door when you, in fact, said to him, you can use it whenever you want it, whenever I'm not home. And according to Mr. Talbot, you spent the last half of the month of December at his home. So there was really no reason why Mr. Anderson couldn't use the bedroom and had to be relegated to the living room. And you changed the rules. You pay the rent.
Obviously, it didn't stay locked.
The case is dismissed.
Bourbon McDaniel is suing her daughter, Glenda Julius, for the cost of her granddaughter's funeral. Glenda says her mother is heartless.
Miss McDaniel, the defendant is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint is really a simple one. And your complaint is that you made 2 loans to your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And she has not paid you back. Your daughter says that these were not loans, they were really gifts. But the matter becomes more complicated because of the nature of the loans that you claim to your daughter. Miss Julius, you had a daughter who was murdered.
Yes, ma'am.
When was she murdered?
September 24th. She was found dead in her room.
In your home?
In our home.
Has the perpetrator of that murder ever been found?
There are 3 people apprehended as of right now for first-degree murder.
How old was your daughter? According to you, Miss McDaniel, you went to where your daughter was living, and your daughter did not have money for a burial.
That's right.
You agreed to loan her the money for the burial.
Yes, ma'am.
Subsequently, your daughter, who was not happy staying in the same house where her daughter was murdered, which is quite understandable because people had not been apprehended at that time, asked if she could relocate, and you agreed to loan her some money.
Yes, ma'am.
So that she could relocate. What was the extent of those 2 sums of money? The funeral was how much?
$4,582.27.
And how much did you advance your daughter to relocate?
$1,487.68.
The matter becomes more complicated because at some point, Ms. Julius, you ascertained that there was a crime victim's compensation that you could apply for.
The DA.
The DA?
From Carroll County.
Told you what?
Told me that there was a victim's fund relief.
And what was it for?
It was for expenses for Jessica's death. And I have been making payments.
Just a second. Expenses for Jessica's death?
Yes.
Which included her burial?
Which my mother gave as a gift.
Listen to me very carefully.
Which included, yes.
So the state of Tennessee had a fund which provided for the survivors of victims of violent crime to give them money so that they could pay for burial?
Yes.
And other related expenses?
Yes.
You applied for that?
Yes.
And you got a check?
Yes.
How much was the check?
One was $5,300 and the other one was $1,024.
Can I see the paperwork surrounding those two checks, please?
There was a few gas expenses.
Can I see the paperwork for the...
This is exactly what
Byrd, I'll take a look
but
at
I
it.
have more different, I have receipts to where I have been paying my mother.
Just a second. They paid you $5,307.27 for the funeral. And then there are other related expenses, moving expenses. Are you telling me that you have proof that you gave some of this money to your mother?
Yes, I have.
I'd like to see it, please.
I have receipts. Here, this is it for money orders. She told me that her payments were $70 and $40. I talked to my sister Gail that's standing next to her over the telephone. She was in California. I talked to her and she said, have you been giving her money? I said, yeah. She told me $70 and $40 on her credit cards. And that's exactly, I've been giving her a little bit more.
Well, I see what you're talking about. You gave her $30, $40.
And it started on 11/3, excuse me.
I understand that, but these are very small amounts of money. When did you get the check from the state?
In April. She told me it was on credit cards, and as long as I was helping her out, there was no lump sum that I was supposed to give her. She knew I would have to go home. I have a headstone to purchase for my daughter, which is $910, and I'm working at a minimum wage job. I moved out because it was so unbearable to live with her in her house.
Let's go back a second. You got this money, which is about $6,500. What did you do with it?
I've been living on it, and also I have money set aside to buy Jessica's stone and money set aside to go home.
Well,
because
so
I cannot live.
Just a second. You just told me that the stone is $900.
$910.
Fine. And did you order it?
I've already talked to...
Yes. Don't play with
Yes.
Did you pay for it?
Not as of yet.
Why not?
Because she started this lawsuit.
What's the name of the company that's going to do the stone?
Memorial Gardens.
Well, you certainly have $900 for the stone because you had got $6,500. And my problem with you, Miss Julius, is because this is not a very difficult case. Whether your mother said to you, as you allege in your answer, it's the least I can do to give you the money for the funeral, right? That's what she alleges you said to her, or not. The good people of the state of Tennessee did not provide this money for you to live on. The good people of the state of Tennessee wanted to ensure that your daughter had an appropriate burial. So you cannot take their money and do what you want with it. You have to take their money and pay for her funeral. That's what it was earmarked for by the state. Because whether you and your mother, according to you, you colluded to defraud the state by her signing papers that said she's going to pay me back, and she really didn't mean that you were going to pay her back, that's a fraud on the state. I can't sanction that. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm working in a dry cleaners. I'm having trouble dealing with the public.
What kind of work did you do before your daughter's death?
I was working in a convenience store, third shift.
Your mother paid for the funeral. According to the claim that you put into the criminal injuries compensation claim for Jessica Dawn Julius, the funeral was $5,307.27. That's what you told the state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the funeral was actually $45.82?
The difference was donations from the school where Jessica went.
What?
I have a paper that states each and every one that gave donation to funeral.
Can I see it, please?
Yes. The family that Jessica was, Lisa Stevens' family, were there and willing, and the whole town was willing to help out with this. My mother is the one that wanted me to move. I left everything I owned.
Listen to me. I'm not talking about the moving. I'm talking about the fact that you cannot take this money and live on it. I have to make a judgment whether the person who actually paid for the funeral, and that's your mother, or you who did not pay for the funeral, are the rightful recipients of this money from the state, which is earmarked for your daughter's burial expenses. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And there were some very nice people from the town who also sent checks in for the funeral. But that's not the issue. The issue really is a very simple one. Whether your mother, at the time that your daughter died, and I believe that she probably did, say to you, this is a terrible time. I don't want you to worry about the funeral. I'll take care of it. Because that's what a parent does. But then when you found out that there was a possibility, because you said that the district attorney told you that there was a fund, that was after your daughter was buried, correct?
Yes.
So after your mother laid out that money, and probably would not have sought to recoup it because you have limited circumstances, that'd be a fair statement. But after she found out that you were going to get this money from the state for the funeral, the right thing for you to do was to give it back to her.
I've been giving her close to $1,500.
No. That
so
may
far.
have been fine, Miss Julius, giving her $30, giving her $70, until you got $6,500. Once you got $6,500, you had to say, Mom, clean up the credit card, pay it off, because that's what this check was supposed to be used for.
Yes,
Do we
ma'am.
understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Let's not pursue this any further. Your family has had sufficient amount of sadness to last for a lifetime. So you have the money, and even if your mother is awarded the $5,000, you still have money left over for the headstone, and then some, right? Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Về cái chi phí mà chúng ta đi xuất khẩu lao động tại đất nước Malaysia thì nói về cái mức chi phí để mà đi xuất khẩu lao động tại đất nước Malaysia thì sẽ thấp hơn nhiều so với các cái thị trường xuất khẩu lao động khác như Đài Loan, Nhật Bản, Singapore. Và cái chi phí đi xuất khẩu lao động tại đất nước Malaysia thì sẽ rơi vào khoảng 1.200 USD cho đến 1.600 USD, tương đương với khoảng từ 28 cho đến 40 triệu là có thể đi xuất khẩu lao động tại đất nước Malaysia. Và cũng bởi vì cái mức chi phí không lớn cho nên là thị trường lao động tại đất nước Malaysia rất là phù hợp với nhiều người lao động có cái điều kinh tế khó khăn hoặc là ở vùng nông thôn, vùng sâu, vùng xa, và các gia đình có cái kinh tế đang khó khăn. Đặc biệt nếu như lao động của chúng ta có người thân ở đất nước Malaysia hoặc là lao động có cái trình độ cao thì chúng ta hoàn toàn có thể đến với Malaysia làm việc mà chúng ta không phải mất một cái khoản phí nào. Vì là trong một cái trường hợp là các công ty ở đất nước Malaysia sẵn sàng bỏ toàn bộ các cái chi phí để lo cho lao động có cái trình độ cao và phù hợp với cái yêu cầu của công ty để chúng ta đến với đất nước Malaysia chúng ta làm việc. Dù là không thể miễn hoàn toàn các cái chi phí khi mà đi xuất khẩu lao động với cái mức là ở cái trình độ xuất khẩu lao động thấp, người lao động của chúng ta có thể nhanh chóng hoàn đủ vốn. Nếu như mà chúng ta vay tiền để mà chúng ta đi xuất khẩu lao động thì chỉ mất khoảng vài tháng là chúng ta, người lao động của chúng ta có thể trả hết cái khoản tiền chúng ta vay để chúng ta đi. Và đặc biệt là khi sang đất nước Malaysia làm việc thì chúng ta sẽ không phải chịu cái áp lực hay là cái nợ nần trong một cái thời gian dài. Đó là cái lựa chọn mà khi chúng ta muốn đến với đất nước Malaysia.